Lich Happens Lore Part 2 The Scent of Freedom. Eventually, Lord Vythrakath began to send me on some of the more standard tasks on my own. One of the more tedious tasks was to oversee the crystal harvest and its transportation. Normally, the Elder Drakes that tend the crystal gardens select the ones ready to be collected and present them before the Dragon Lord for judgment. Once the Dragon Lord approves the crystals, they would be sent to the local Small Ones villages to be used by their healers and wizards to improve their lives. This approval was largely ceremonial, as Lord Coldfire knew very little about crystals and just went off of the recommendations of the Grand Crystologist. This year, she chose to send me to approve the harvest in her stead. It was all going to plan. The Elder prattled on about the different kinds of crystals and their benefits. I nodded, admiring their passion, but not really absorbing this bombardment of crystalline knowledge. Once the Grand Crystologist finished, I said the ceremonial words and granted the crystals the blessing of the Dragon Lord, and called forth the courier, who would bring the crystals to the Small Ones. But the courier was nowhere to be found. The Grand Crystologist was distraught. In the 500 years that he had been sharing the crystals with the world, they had never failed to produce a harvest, let alone have one arrive late. I quickly thought up an idea that might let me taste the air outside of our barriers, if only for a short while. "Elder, I shall deliver the harvest," I proposed. "You've properly divided them, and I can carry them easily. It will be a simple matter for me to deliver them to the Small Ones and be home before Lord Vythrakath misses me." The Elder contemplated for a moment before nodding and agreeing that this was the most prudent method. Quickly, I bundled up the cases of crystals and set off to the Small Ones' village. It was a perfect day for flying. The sun was radiant, adding a glow to the tops of the clouds. The sky was as blue as the sapphires I was carrying, and the fragrance of the forest below gave the air an almost sweet taste. Nothing could have been better, and on top of that, I would get to actually go to the Small Ones' villages. I was coursing with energy from the adventure ahead. I did exactly as the Elder told me to do. I landed in the forest outside of the first village, and used my humanoid form so as not to frighten the Small Ones. The form did very little to dampen our natural strength and magic, but it made the Small Ones feel more at ease, especially when we wore a cloak to hide our more draconic features from easy view. I entered the village and was amazed. The Small Ones moved so quickly, all scurrying about with some task or another. A product of their short lifespans, I suppose. I had seen this kind of Small One before, as they had come to Lord Vythrakath's court, and I believe they were called humans. I found someone who seemed to be telling others what to do, and asked where the village leader was so that I may deliver the share of the harvest. The man grumbled something and then gestured towards a large structure made from downed trees. It's a pity that someone would butcher the forest to make such a thing, but maybe humans didn't have nice warm caves to call home. I entered the structure and was greeted by the town's leader, a man by the name of May Or. A strange name for a dragon, but possibly fine for a human. He said how grateful they were for the crystals and assured me that he would put them to good use helping the people of the village. It concerned me a bit that the only place in the town that seemed to have traces of magic was this structure, and a few others similar to it, but humans have their own way of doing things. I soon departed to make my other deliveries, which went mostly along the same lines. I was directed to two other men, also named May Or, strangely enough. I just assumed it was a common name for leaders. The men thanked me much in the same way as the others, and again, though they were gifted our magic for all, only a few seemed to be using it. I was confused as to why they were not freely sharing it, but a problem for another day. It was time to return home, and to what I anticipated would be a scolding from Lord Coldfire for my impromptu outing. As I flew back, going over how I would argue my case in my head, I heard a very strange series of noises, so I landed and quickly took my human form to investigate. And what I saw was infuriating. An elvish village was being attacked by a roaming group of orcs. The elves had always been a kind group that had enjoyed sharing their herbs and vegetables with us. I could not believe that anyone would try to harm such a kind people. I felt a rage build within me that I had not known I was capable of, and before I knew what I was doing, I had already torn 2 of the orcs into pieces. Though they are known to be a more durable type of the small ones, my claws tore them asunder like they were made of the clouds I loved to fly through. It wasn't long before the raiding party realized that there was a problem and turned their focus to me. They would charge me, and I would cut through them. I remember at a certain point wondering why they didn't run. They knew they were beaten, yet they still charged me, only to be destroyed? After a bloody march to the town square, I found what appeared to be the raiders' leader tying up the elves, mumbling something about how much he will be able to get for the elves on the market. As I slew the last of his subordinates, he turned to me and drew his axe. It burst aflame as he began to charge. I sighed, expecting the outcome to be the same as the others, but the raid leader dodged my claws, and his axe buried itself into my neck. Or at least, that's what it looked like to the raid leader. As the flames from the axe spread to my cloak, the covering burned away, revealing the axe had been stopped completely once it had collided with my scales. He was only able to say, "Oh no," before my claws shredded him. The orcs dealt with, I then freed the elves of the village, and knowing I was now surely late, departed to endure the inevitable punishment of Lord Vithraketh. I returned and quickly began preparing Lord Vithraketh's dinner. As I brought in her meal, she immediately asked why I was late, and coolly asked for a full report. Though she was asking, I knew that tone, and I was assuredly in for her infamous cold rage. I told her that the courier had not shown, and that the elders were panicking, so I volunteered to deliver the harvest. I told her of the deliveries, and how I had followed the rules of governing myself with the small ones, and used my cloak in humanoid form. But ever the intelligent one, she asked, "Then why were you late? Deliveries should have gotten you back in time. What aren't you telling me, Rothamathrix?" This wasn't good. She never called me by my name unless she was fuming angry. I should have just cut my losses and told her of the elven village then. But I had never bloodied my claws before, and I was afraid of the wrath that would invoke on myself. I wanted to look around more. You never let me explore the world, yet you chose me to serve you because you knew it was my desire. How will I ever be able to shape the world if you keep me here in your hall while you hold court? She rolled her eyes and sighed, exasperated. I keep you in my court to learn from me. I won't be able to lead our people forever, and one day I hoped you might lead them, how I have, and that these dreams of the world would fall by the side of your duty. Your duty is to the fire dragons, not to the small ones who wage war mindlessly, that destroy the world that we shaped for them. I can't see you waste your potential trying to save those that will never change. I will never give up on wanting to see the world, and I will get the small ones to understand their impact, and how they can come together to shape the world for the better. I am still that determined whelp you named. I just hoped you would believe in me enough to let me try. I left her hall to retire to my own sleeping area, frustrated and angry. The next morning I returned to my standard duties. Lord Coldfire and I carried on as if we hadn't just argued over my future, since it would only interfere with the day's tasks. All went according to the normal schedule until an elf appeared in front of Lord Coldfire. An elf I recognized from the village that had been attacked. The elf had come to thank the dragon that had saved them from the orc raid. He did not know his name, but from the scales and appearance of the mysterious savior, he thought the dragon lord might know. Immediately, Lord Coldfire called me forward and told me to enter my humanoid form. As soon as I turned, the elf thanked me emphatically, telling me how I had saved his family and his people, begging that I take some of their best vegetables as a thank you. I tried to decline, but Lord Coldfire said that based on the feats I had performed, a reward was only appropriate, both from the elves and the Dragon Lord. I was horrified that my deception had come to light like this, but I was ready to accept my punishment. I could not abandon those that needed me, so if I had to endure Lord Coldfire's wrath, so be it. Roltha Mathrex, assistant to the Dragon Lord and savior of the elven village of Silbel. You have made such an impact on these small ones' lives, but I think there is more yet that you can do. As a reward for your great act of heroism, I grant you 50 of the small ones' years to fly free about the continent, to shape it into a world that values each other's lives. When that time is up, you will return, and your shaping of the world will be evaluated. If you are deemed to have made the small one's life better, you will return and continue your work. If not, you will resume your duties here. So says the Dragon Lord Vithraketh. I was elated that I would be able to help the world. I thanked the Dragon Lord for this gift and departed with my new elven friend to begin their rebuilding and begin my shaping of the world.